Welcome to the Do Good Work podcast. Today we are having a productive profits segment, and we're talking about the 3 core tenets to effective digital leadership. So leadership is evolving both in how we interact with others, with other humans, and how we facilitate those interactions digital. So we've got human interaction in person, and we're doing a lot of that interaction now in the digital landscape. And the thing about this digital landscape is that it's an accelerator for the good and the negative characteristics of leaders. For example, if you were a bad time management leader in the office, well, that issue of time management is going to be exponentially worse online and be exposed significantly faster. But on the other hand, if you're a leader who empowers your teams in the office and you'll understand how to leverage digital communications, you'll shine in the digital landscape and accelerate in your career much faster. So these are just 2 simple examples, but the key to digital leadership is to create leverage in 3 areas: communication, process, and drivers. So those are the 3 areas: communication, the first, the second, process, and the third, drivers. And we're going to define what I mean when I say drivers. So the first, leverage communication. So good digital leaders spend most of their day processing information and making informed decisions with their team. Notice that I use the word good. Bad digital leaders are in the day-to-day grind, being swept away by whatever's trending or whatever is the topic of the day. However, if you're going to practice what we're showing here in Productive Profits, you're going to definitely be spending a lot of your day processing information and making informed decisions. And most of the communication or the information that you process is written. Some of it is video. And if you use Dropper, Loom, or ClickUp, or whatever you use to record video, that communication comes through there. And most of the communication, however, is regularly flooding your inbox, your unreads, and your chats. Other communication forms of information come through your meetings, the actual meetings you have one-on-ones, either in person or if you're spending too much time on Zoom, becoming a Zoom zombie. So we have all this communication, all this information happening. However, we need to get down to what is the purpose of this communication. The purpose of all communication is to transfer information from one brain to another. The brain that you're transferring information to can be either another human's brain or to a computer. Okay. So the key is to compartmentalize these forms of communication into 3 buckets. Again, communication to transfer information. The 3 buckets of communication happen in touch and go forms of communication. For example, making progress without having to meet. The second are real-time communications, for example, in your calls or meetings. And the third is a central source of truth to reference important information that can be used at a later time. And I put a heavy emphasis at a later time because there's some information that you need right now that you put to use, but there's other information that's going to be useful, but it's going to be useful tomorrow, next week, or next month. And the key is to store that in a place where you can easily reference and execute at the proper time. So the central source of truth, creating a master brain. And your goal as a leader is to shorten the gap between information and action. I'll say that again, shorten the gap between information and action. And to do this digitally at scale, remote, and effectively, you need to create 2 lines of communication, horizontal and vertical, using these 3 forms of communication. So we have horizontal communications and vertical communications, leveraging the 3 forms of communication: touch and go, real time, and your master brain or your central source of truth. So a horizontal communication is cross-team, cross-departmental, all-hands communications to allow you to eliminate the number 1 leech of digital teams: silos. Okay? Silos are the number 1 leech in every single team existing right now. I don't even know how we can put a price tag to silos, but they are definitely costing you and bleeding you out from the inside. So those are horizontal communications: cross-team, cross-department, or all-hands communications, because it's flat. Now, vertical lines of communication are based on your teams, based on your functions, based on specific projects, and having vertical communications allow you to go from having 17 people on your Zoom call to the only 4 people who need to be engaged for very specific team or cross functions or project-based initiatives. So the horizontal is great to have large meetings to eliminate silos, to make sure everyone's on pulse. You don't do that every single day, but vertical is important for you to execute on the actual action item that need to happen today or this week. So we need to combine both horizontal and vertical lines of communication using the three forms of communication. So by doing this, you'll be able to see these three benefits. The first benefit is clear communication happening directly from you and within your teams. And a huge hint, a huge number one desire that every single that I've worked with wants is that they want clarity and they love clarity. They know they love knowing what to do and what's expected. And if we do that well, your teams will thrive. A second benefit is that you'll spend less time on useless meetings. And I hate to sound like a broken record, but if I were to open up your calendar right now, I would say 33 to upwards of 45% of your meetings right now are completely going to waste and can be replaced with the lines of communication that we just outlined. And the third benefit that you'll see is that you'll have the headspace as a leader to focus on more important actions. Because if you're just meeting all day, you're being redundant and you're going into the weeds and not being able to really think about the bigger picture and be able to think strategically and create strategy with the team. And this is a real issue online today, which brings us to the second form of leverage that digital leaders need to create. So again, the first form of leverage we just went through, that is your communication. The second form of leverage is in your process, because as a leader, at the end of the day, once you have clear direction and initiatives, you must foster and manage two keys in your company: the things your people do, how they do them, and who does them. So let's tackle the process key. So the key to results is in your process. The key to every outcome is in the habits, the process, and how you show up. Because I see business like how we execute things day to day as humans. There are habits right now that drive the results that you need for growth. And these habits people call processes, but essentially they're habits either done by you, the actual leader, someone else on your team, or a machine. The key thing here around these habits is that you can have the best people in the world, but if they're practicing the wrong habits or the wrong process, you will dismantle your progress. So as a leader, it's important that you don't come up with just the process. It's important for you to create leverage with you and your team to create the best process that drives the results that your team needs. So you don't have to have all of the answers yourself. You just need to be able to guide and facilitate how to create the best process or the best habits that are custom fit for your team and custom fit for your goals, which brings us to the third form of leverage, which are your drivers. Now, I define drivers very specifically because I believe that in business right now, there is a redundant mindset that in startups or in scale-ups, you can either be a visionary or you can be an integrator or an implementer or whatever. Now, those two things are very dangerous because some people might just get off the hook by not implementing things, and other people might not give them the opportunity to be able to think big or provide strategic value if they're just thought of or sought as implementers. Now, as a leader, you get to decide how fast you want to grow and how fast you want to go. And you decide that specifically by developing and fostering the right kind of team. And in fast-growing companies, I don't believe there's anything of visionaries or implementers. There's only two types of people. There's only two types of people in fast-growing companies, either a driver or a laggard. And clearly, a laggard is not going to last long. Now, within your drivers, there are two types of drivers: those who are front-facing drivers, who are out and about and really like driving, spearheading new initiatives, and okay being vocal, okay leading calls, okay getting on stage to share their ideas. And there's also drivers who want to be behind the scenes. I call these wizards. These are drivers who drive initiatives and take action and collaborate with the team, but they're okay with not being on stage or sharing or leading every single call. And the reason why it's important, because both drivers who are front-facing and drivers who are wizards, They both need to be able to think at a 30,000 foot view strategically, but also be able to get at the 1 foot level and be able to pull the levers and take action immediately. I don't think there should be a luxury of, I'm just going to think and you're just going to do everything. That's okay and that's great. But if you really want to do your best work, I believe that taking the mindset of a driver is going to really help you grow and help you collaborate with you as a leader on the vision and execute to deliver the results and work on constant improvements. So as a leader, you must foster this and empower your drivers in order to create true leverage and direct the company where it needs to be. Because let's go back to what we just created through 3 areas of leverage, right? Communications, if you're ever to clear up your calendar and be able to communicate clearly. Second is in the habits that your team produces, be able to work with your team to create the right processes. And third, being able to foster the right kinds of teams. This leaves you as a leader with the opportunity to thrive at a fast-paced digital world, because digital business moves extremely fast. There's no other way to put it. And as a leader, now we really have to foster the team and grow over time. And we do this using the 5 pillars of heroic leadership. Now, I've coached CEOs, I've trained and developed leaders, and I've condensed what I believe to be the 5 pillars of characteristics of what leadership should be, specifically for fast-growing digital companies. This is not for legacy type companies. This is not for companies that aren't online. This isn't for companies that are moving at a fast pace. These are for companies that are going through growth. These are companies that want to do great work. And I condensed these into 5 pillars called heroic leadership. And what heroic leadership is: the practice of disciplined thought, communication, time, action, and growth. Now, why do we call it heroic? I believe there is a difference between a leader who just leads and a leader who inspires. And I believe it takes a heroic leader to inspire others, because the true measurement, I would say, of a leader isn't just the results that you produce, it's, are you producing other leaders? That's the number one measurement for a heroic leader, because being heroic begins with taking on and facing responsibility as it is, never shying away from it. And it comes with a dedication to the mission that you are embarking on, with the people you have alongside you on this mission, and taking action on whichever path leads to the greatest good towards success. So that you also need to be not afraid, because sometimes the greatest path is not easy, and it might be a bit daunting. Heroic leaders know firmly that they own the outcome themselves, and if it's a positive or negative outcome, it's up to them to take full ownership of that. And they give credit to the team when we accomplish great feats, and we don't blame others when there's errors or mistakes. I believe that in leadership maturity, you just listen. If you want to see how mature a leader is, listen to how, if they make excuses, or listen to what they talk about when they fail. If they blame others, they have some opportunity to grow. And if you do that right now, that's okay. That's the purpose of why we're listening to this podcast. We're being able to develop and be able to improve, because every single day is a new day and no one's perfect. I learned a lot of this the hard way, very hard. One key distinction in a heroic leader is that as a leader, you can delegate any task. But as a heroic leader, you can never delegate responsibility. And I believe there is wisdom in knowing the difference. So let's get to the 5 pillars of heroic leadership and giving you some examples of what you can do to execute and facilitate and take action on these 5 pillars. Now, the first pillar of heroic leadership is to be steady, meaning when you're going through the thick of it, when you're going through growing pains, you want to make sure that you keep the main thing and that you keep focused. This isn't to say that you're going to completely remain stoic and unchanging. This means that you're going to be proactive on areas of improvement, but you're also not going to whimper when the going gets rough, because when you grow, especially online, there might be times of uncertainty. It's important to be steady and remain the course. The second pillar of heroic leadership, I think this is one of the most important, is to set the stage and to understand the weight of your words and actions to the team, because you talk to the team in 2 different ways. You talk to them in the words that you say, and you talk to them by the actions that you take. And I know that some leaders might paint the wrong picture with their teams, and they might not do it intentionally, and they're trying their best. But I just want to make sure that we know that the actions that we take also speak louder than just the tonality or the messages that we send through. And as heroic leaders, we have to take responsibility of how we show up every single day, because even if we feel like it or not, the team is depending on us. The third pillar of heroic leadership is to take informed execution. So we got to make sure we use data to make decisions and have trusted advisors to give you what I call a sanity check prior to making big decisions or pivots. We want to make sure that we make our choices off of data. And personally, like the sanity check has totally helped me, having a trusted advisor either on your team and people that you know are not going to say yes just because you're a leader. People are going to give you pushback. People are going to be blunt to you and tell you that you're wrong. I think that's critical. So take informed execution is the third pillar. The fourth pillar is to fuel others. And this is when you're going in the day-to-day, the mundane, that quarter where things are just going in, going out, input, output, and continuing to do the work. It can get dry for your team. It can get tiring. It's important for you to fuel your team, encourage them, be there for them, empower new leaders. And one of the ways that you can empower new leaders or future leaders in your company or in your team is to create leverage by following what I call the decision-making matrix, where if someone comes to you with a question, make sure that they come with at least a couple answers, 3 to 5 different options, and allow them to choose what is the best option. And if they are making the right decision, tell them why you believe that's the best decision so that they can process how you think. And if you do this over time, if this happened to me personally, if you do this, I would say maybe 6, maybe 8 months. If you do this over time, it could be faster. I could be slow, right? But if you do this over time, when you practice that discipline of creating a decision-making matrix for your future leader, they might actually say, wait, I know exactly what you're going to say. You're going to choose this reason because of this. And if they do that over time and they're answering what you believe to be the best choice, then you've known that you've helped them develop and empower them to make their own decisions. And I think that's a really cool thing to see, specifically if you're trying to grow or if you're trying to sunset your business, you want someone else to take over. The fifth pillar of heroic leadership is to facilitate movement. And this goes back to the second form of leverage of providing and supporting and creating process, as well as providing the future, painting the picture together as a team. What does that vision look like? And ensuring that the team has that same painted picture in their mind, and that we continue to leverage communication, continue to create feedback loops, continue to allow the team to take the right actions and facilitate movement. Think about being an orchestrator. Orchestrating a beautiful orchestra, and your team is playing the different instruments to make sure that we have a beautiful symphony moving and going forward. That's the fifth pillar of heroic leadership. So to recap today's podcast, we went over the 3 forms of leverage that you can create today online as a digital leader. The 3 forms of leverage being communication, process, and your drivers. And we talked about heroic leadership and the 5 pillars of heroic leadership for you to be able to take some of these practices and start just practicing these habits, because leadership is a journey. And as you work to becoming a heroic leader, that it requires the daily repetitions. And it's okay if you fail. I fail. I literally failed today. But it's okay, because you know what? We're going to get back up and we're going to get at it again today. Or if you're listening to this in the morning, you're going to get back at it tomorrow or today in the morning, because today's a new day. And each day is a new day for us to make our determination. Are we going to honor our choice to become heroic? Are we going to honor our choice that we made to lead our team effectively? Are we going to honor the choice of the mission that we decided to embark on? And as you do that, I just want to make sure that you continue to grow, because you can do this. You can become heroic. And I can't wait to hear about your success story around that. Thank you for being here with us today. As always, it's an honor to be a small part of your journey. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider sharing this with someone who you believe might benefit from it. You never know, you might be the catalyst that creates an impact in their journey and in their life. If you have any recommendations for the podcast, feedback, or guests or topics you'd like us to go deeper, please email me at podcast@dogoodwork.io. That's podcast@dogoodwork.io. This is Raul Hernandez. Do good work.